Consistency is the true catalyst of change because it is the quiet force behind every meaningful transformation. When we look at people who have achieved mastery, who have built empires, who have transformed their minds and environments, it is tempting to believe that they possessed something extraordinary from the beginning, some divine spark, an unmatched talent, or access to resources beyond the reach of ordinary individuals. But upon closer inspection, we find a far more powerful truth. They simply chose to be consistent. They made a commitment to themselves that they would show up every single day, no matter what. That commitment, kept over time, became the foundation for results that others called miraculous. The nature of change is gradual. Just as the seasons shift slowly and a river carves through rock over centuries, meaningful change does not arrive in a single burst of inspiration. It is the outcome of repeated decisions, some easy, most hard, carried out over weeks, months, and years. Consistency is the tool that gives shape to desire. Without it, all ambition remains vague and unrealized. Consistency translates intent into reality, thought into form, and dreams into achievements. A goal without consistency is like a seed without water. It may have potential, but it will never bear fruit. The reason consistency is so powerful lies in the way it engages the law of cause and effect. Every action you take, no matter how small, sends a signal to your subconscious, to your environment, and to the people around you. One day of focused effort may go unnoticed. A week might feel unremarkable. But as days stack upon one another, momentum begins to build. And this momentum, once strong enough, becomes self-sustaining. You no longer need to push so hard because the system you've built begins to push you forward. It becomes easier to continue than to quit. Most people misunderstand what change truly requires. They believe it demands dramatic gestures or instant shifts. But in truth, transformation begins when you make a quiet decision to act consistently in alignment with your vision. Not for a day, not for a week, but for as long as it takes. That may mean rising early every morning when no one is watching. It may mean practicing your craft for years before receiving recognition. It may mean holding firm to your principles in moments when it would be easier to give in. But with every act of consistency, you reaffirm your identity. You become the kind of person who finishes what they start. And that identity reshapes every area of your life. We live in a world that celebrates the extraordinary, but the extraordinary is simply the ordinary done consistently. The author who writes a masterpiece did so by writing daily. The athlete who becomes a champion trained when no one applauded. The entrepreneur who builds a business labored through countless days of unseen effort. Each of these individuals harnessed the quiet power of doing the right thing again and again, especially when it wasn't convenient, especially when it wasn't glamorous. Consistency is not easy, but it is simple. It doesn't require genius. It requires commitment. It doesn't demand perfection. It demands presence. If you can develop the discipline to show up every day, to do what must be done even when you don't feel like it, you are already ahead of most. Because most are waiting to feel ready. Most are waiting for the mood to strike. But those who force themselves to be consistent become unstoppable. And in time, everything, absolutely everything, begins to fall into place. Willpower must be trained, not trusted. It is one of the greatest misconceptions in personal growth to assume that the people who achieve greatness are always motivated, always energized, always full of desire to take action. That is not the truth. The truth is, they have trained their willpower like a muscle. They have learned how to act regardless of how they feel. They do not wait to feel like doing the work. They have taught themselves to do it anyway. And that is what sets them apart. They understand that willpower is not a gift. It is a discipline, a habit, a practice. Most people rely on motivation, which is fleeting. Motivation is emotional, and emotions are unreliable. One day you feel inspired, and the next day you feel nothing. If your actions are dictated by how you feel in the moment, You will remain inconsistent, and inconsistency is the graveyard of potential. You cannot trust yourself to always be in the right state of mind. That is why you must train your willpower to override the natural resistance of your body and mind. You must become stronger than your excuses. You must condition yourself to act when everything inside you is begging you to delay. Training willpower begins with small acts of discipline. You wake up when the alarm rings, not because you want to, but because you said you would. You go to the gym, not because you feel like working out, but because it's part of who you are becoming. You sit down to study, to write, to build, to create, not because of some burst of motivation, but because you know that each act of discipline is a deposit into your future. This is how you become powerful, not by waiting, but by choosing. People believe that discipline is a form of restriction. In reality, it is the purest form of freedom. Because once you learn to control your impulses, once you become the master of your habits, you are no longer at the mercy of mood swings, laziness, distractions, or outside influences. You become centered. You become calm. You become effective. You can work while others sleep. You can persist while others quit. You can endure while others complain. Why? Because you have trained your willpower to answer to your vision, not your comfort. The process of training willpower is uncomfortable. At first, everything inside you will rebel. Your mind will come up with clever justifications. Your body will crave ease. You will want to wait for a better time, a better day, a better mood. But if you can push through the resistance just once, then you've created a crack in the wall of procrastination. If you can do it again, the crack widens. And with each repetition, with each act of doing what needs to be done, regardless of how you feel, you shatter that wall completely. That is when you become dangerous, because you no longer need motivation. You have become self-directed. You have become unstoppable. Every successful person has had to force themselves in the beginning. There were days they didn't want to study, days they didn't want to practice, days they didn't want to keep going. But they did. And each time they did, their willpower grew stronger. Like iron being forged in fire, their discipline became unbreakable. Eventually, the actions that once required effort became automatic. What was once a struggle became second nature. Do not wait for inspiration. Do not expect your environment to shape you. Instead, shape yourself. Train your willpower like a warrior trains for battle. Every day, sharpen it, strengthen it, rely on it. And when the world gets heavy, when your dreams feel far, when nothing seems to move, your willpower will carry you. Not because it was always there, but because you built it, brick by brick, one hard decision at a time. The law of compounding effort is one of the most powerful forces available to anyone willing to practice patience, persistence, and consistency. It states that the small, seemingly insignificant actions we take every single day, when done with intention and repetition, add up to extraordinary results over time. The reason most people fail to transform their lives is not because they lack talent or opportunity, but because they fail to understand or trust this law. They underestimate the power of repetition, and they abandon their efforts far too early, expecting instant outcomes in a world that rewards long-term consistency. At first, the fruits of your effort may seem invisible. You may go to the gym for a week and see no change in the mirror. You may wake up early and build a routine, only to feel tired and unproductive. You may write pages of a book that no one reads. You may start a business that earns no profit in the beginning. In these early moments, doubt creeps in. The mind whispers, "This isn't working. What's the point?" And this is precisely where most give up. But those who understand the law of compounding effort know that progress is not linear. It is silent. It is slow. And then, suddenly, it is explosive. Just like money compounds in a savings account when consistently invested, so too do your actions compound when consistently applied. Reading 10 pages a day doesn't seem like much until you've read 3, 6, and 50 pages in a year. Practicing your skill for just 30 minutes a day may seem minor, until you've practiced over 180 hours by year's end. One conversation, one workout, one study session, on their own, they may appear small, but stack them together, and you build momentum. You build mastery. You build a life that no longer resembles the one you started from. This law does not care about speed. It cares about consistency. You do not need to sprint. You do not need to be the most talented. You simply need to show up daily and do the work. Each effort, each repetition, each act of discipline becomes another drop in the bucket. Eventually, the bucket overflows. That is when others call it overnight success, not realizing the quiet years of repetition that made it possible. One of the greatest advantages of compounding effort is that it builds self-trust. Each time you act in alignment with your goals, no matter how small the action, you send a signal to your mind. I am someone who follows through. That identity strengthens over time. You stop needing external motivation because you have internal momentum. That is how confidence is truly built, not through praise, but through private, repeated victories over laziness, distraction, and doubt. What's even more remarkable is how compounding effort creates secondary benefits. As you improve in one area, other areas begin to improve as well. The discipline you build in health spills over into your finances. The focus you develop in your work improves your relationships. The habits you form in your morning routine elevate your energy for the rest of the day. Like a rising tide that lifts all boats, consistency in one domain begins to transform the whole of your life. The key is to remain patient. Results take time. Growth is often invisible before it is obvious. You must resist the urge to quit just because progress isn't instantly visible. Most people quit on the 5-yard line. They stop digging just before they reach gold. But if you understand the law of compounding effort, you keep going. You trust the process. You do the small things well again and again. And one day, you will look back and be astonished at how far you've come. Not because you made giant leaps, but because you took consistent steps. And those steps, repeated with discipline, created a life others will one day admire and wonder how you achieved. Inconsistency breeds confusion and doubt, not only in the mind of others, but, more dangerously, in your own mind. When you are inconsistent with your actions, your intentions become unclear, your goals become foggy, and your self-belief begins to deteriorate. Every time you start something with excitement and abandon it halfway, you teach yourself that your word means nothing. You erode trust within yourself, and without self-trust, no ambition can truly thrive. Inconsistency may seem like a small crack, but over time, it becomes a fracture in your foundation, a gap wide enough to swallow your potential whole. The truth is, clarity comes not from thinking or planning alone. It comes from action, and not random action, but repeated, aligned, consistent action. When you wake up and do the same focused work, when you follow through on your plan, even when circumstances are imperfect, you begin to create a rhythm in your life. That rhythm eliminates uncertainty. Your vision sharpens. You no longer question what you're doing or why, because your consistent actions reinforce your purpose. But when you allow inconsistency to creep in, confusion quickly follows. One day you're chasing one goal, the next day another. One week you're disciplined, the next week distracted. Your results begin to reflect your inconsistency. You lose momentum, and eventually you lose direction. Every time you stop and start, you reset your progress. It's like building a house and tearing it down every few days. You never get far because you never stay long enough in one place to create stability. And when results don't show up as quickly as you expect, you begin to doubt the path itself. You ask yourself, is this the right thing? Am I wasting my time? But it's not that your goal was wrong. It's that your inconsistency robbed it of the time and energy it needed to take root. Most people don't fail because they chose the wrong destination. They fail because they never stayed the course long enough to reach it. Moreover, inconsistency confuses the people around you. When you're unreliable in your habits, your relationships, your commitments, others begin to question your dependability. They don't know who they're dealing with because your behavior is unpredictable. Leadership, influence, trust, all these require stability. People follow those who are consistent, not those who are erratic. If your team, your family, or your clients see you shifting constantly, they won't believe in your vision because you haven't proven your belief in it through disciplined action. Consistency, on the other hand, builds inner certainty. It's not just about routines and schedules. It's about identity. Every time you show up, even in small ways, you reinforce a powerful truth. I am someone who follows through. That belief compounds. It begins to replace fear with focus, doubt with determination, and hesitation with execution. You stop questioning yourself because you've created a track record of behavior that tells you exactly who you are and what you can achieve. It is also important to understand that inconsistency creates chaos in the subconscious mind. The brain seeks order and patterns to form habits and automate success. But when your actions are unpredictable, the subconscious cannot support your goals. It has no clear data to work with. That's why consistent effort is not just physical, it's neurological. You are programming your mind through your actions, and consistency is the language it understands. So, if you want clarity, confidence, and progress, you must remove inconsistency like a weed from the garden of your mind. You must commit to showing up, not perfectly, but faithfully. Consistency doesn't mean never missing a day. It means returning to your path again and again, no matter how many times you drift. Over time, that return builds trust, and that trust creates momentum. With enough momentum, the fog lifts, doubt dissolves, and you finally begin to see the path clearly before you. Not because the path changed, but because you finally walked it long enough to understand it. Emotion is unreliable. Ritual is reliable. If you live your life based on how you feel in the moment, you will be a slave to inconsistency. Emotions are like the weather, constantly shifting, often unpredictable, and entirely outside of your control. One day you feel inspired, and you take massive action. The next day, you feel tired or discouraged, and you do nothing. Living this way creates chaos. It keeps you stuck in cycles of starting and stopping, trying and quitting, hoping and hesitating. The people who create real change, who build legacies, who rise to the top of their fields, do not depend on emotion to determine their actions. They depend on ritual. Ritual is structure. Ritual is intention turned into habit. Ritual is the daily decision to show up, whether you feel like it or not. It is the invisible architecture of success, the quiet rhythm behind every achievement. You see, when you create a ritual, you no longer need to negotiate with yourself. You no longer waste energy deciding whether or not to act. You have already decided. The choice has been made in advance. That is the power of ritual. It frees you from the trap of emotional decision making and replaces chaos with clarity. Most people wait to feel motivated before they do the work. But motivation is fleeting. It's a spark, not a fire. You cannot build your life on something so fragile. If you want to succeed, you must build systems that continue to function even when you are tired, uninspired, or emotionally drained. Rituals are those systems. They are the daily routines, the non-negotiable actions, the self-imposed standards that keep you moving forward. They anchor your life. They organize your energy, and they ensure that progress continues even during your lowest moments. Think of the most successful individuals in any field: athletes, writers, artists, entrepreneurs. They don't wait until they feel creative or feel like training. They have routines that they follow with discipline. They have carved out time in their day for repetition, practice, and execution. They understand that emotion is a byproduct of action, not a prerequisite for it. When you take consistent action, your emotions eventually align with your effort. But if you wait for emotions to lead, you will rarely take action at all. Rituals give you control. When the world around you is uncertain, when circumstances are unpredictable, your rituals become your anchor. They provide stability. You may not be able to control the events of the day, but you can control your routine. You can control how you begin your morning, how you approach your work, how you end your evening. These repeated behaviors become a signal to your mind. This is who I am. This is what I do. And as your identity strengthens, so does your ability to persevere through difficulty. There will be days when you feel nothing, no drive, no energy, no clarity. On those days, ritual saves you. You go through the motions, and even if the result isn't perfect, you maintain your rhythm. You stay connected to your mission. You avoid the emotional crash that comes from breaking your promises to yourself. That is what separates the consistent from the inconsistent, the ability to act without needing to feel inspired. Ritual is more than routine. It is a form of self-respect. It says, "My goals matter enough that I will not leave them in the hands of how I feel today." It says, "I choose discipline over distraction, commitment over convenience." When you live by ritual, you live with intention. And over time, your rituals begin to produce results that no amount of emotion could ever generate, because emotion fades. But rituals, once embedded in your life, endure. They carry you through storms. They protect your progress. And eventually, they deliver you to a life of purpose, achievement, and lasting fulfillment. Success rewards the persistent, not the perfect. This truth is often overlooked in a world that glamorizes flawless execution and celebrates extraordinary talent. Many people believe they must get everything exactly right before they begin, that they must master every detail before they take action. But this mindset paralyzes more dreams than failure ever could. The reality is, success does not belong to the one who never stumbles. It belongs to the one who keeps going. Progress is always more powerful than perfection. Perfection is an illusion. It sets a standard that no human being can consistently meet. It causes hesitation, self-criticism, and ultimately inaction. When you aim for perfection, you are more likely to delay starting, more likely to quit when you fall short, and more likely to measure your value based on impossible standards. But persistence has no such demands. It says, show up anyway. Try again. Improve with time. While perfection waits for the perfect conditions, persistence creates progress under any condition. The most successful people are not the ones who never made mistakes. They're the ones who kept going after making them. They tried, failed, learned, adjusted, and repeated the process. Their strength was not in getting everything right, but in refusing to stop when things went wrong. Every error became a lesson. Every delay became a test of character. Every setback became fuel for their determination. They understood that the road to mastery is paved with mistakes. They saw each imperfect step not as a failure, but as a necessary part of the journey. When you commit to persistence, you give yourself permission to evolve. You no longer fear missteps because you understand that progress lives in motion, not in perfection. The person who shows up every day, who continues to work on their craft, who continues to move toward their goals, no matter how slowly, will always surpass the person who waits to get everything just right. Momentum, not flawlessness, is what propels you forward. There's a deeper reason why persistence leads to success. It builds resilience. With every act of perseverance, you become stronger. You prove to yourself that you can handle adversity. You build mental and emotional muscles that perfectionism never allows you to develop. When things go wrong, as they always will, the persistent person adjusts and adapts. They are flexible, not fragile. They are committed, not concerned with appearing flawless. They keep moving forward, even if they have to crawl. Persistence also sharpens your vision. When you keep showing up, clarity begins to form. You begin to understand what works and what doesn't. You stop theorizing and start learning from experience. You develop instincts and insights that only come from repeated effort. And with each repetition, you refine your methods, grow your confidence, and reinforce your identity as someone who does not give up. There will always be people more talented than you, more experienced, more connected. But talent alone cannot compete with someone who is relentless. Persistence outlasts brilliance. It turns the average into the exceptional, the overlooked into the irreplaceable. It is not about being the smartest or the fastest. It is about refusing to stop. When you make peace with imperfection, when you stop waiting to feel ready or to be perfect, you unlock your potential. The real prize is not in getting it right every time, it's in showing up every time. If you keep moving, keep learning, and keep trying, success will eventually have no choice but to reward you. Not because you were perfect, but because you were persistent enough to earn it. Consistency aligns you with opportunity in a way that nothing else can. Most people believe opportunities are rare, random, or reserved for the lucky. But the truth is, opportunities are everywhere. They're simply invisible to those who aren't ready. When you are inconsistent, you're out of rhythm with the flow of life. You miss signals. You overlook connections. You lack the momentum needed to capitalize on what's in front of you. But when you show up consistently, day after day, task after task, you begin to synchronize with the very patterns that create results. You place yourself in the path of progress, and in doing so, you become visible to the opportunities that were always there, waiting for someone serious enough to receive them. Consistency builds readiness. It sharpens your skills, strengthens your mindset, and builds your reputation. These are not random benefits, they are preparation. And when preparation meets opportunity, people call it luck. But it's not luck, it's alignment. It's the result of someone deciding to show up with discipline long before success arrived. The person who trains daily becomes ready for the match, even if they didn't know when it would come. The entrepreneur who works on their craft daily becomes ready for the investor or client, even if they had no clue when the door would open. The student who studies daily becomes ready for the exam, not because of a last-minute rush, but because of a long-term approach. The reason consistency is so powerful is because it builds a pattern, an energetic rhythm, a predictable behavior, a steady frequency that the world can respond to. People are drawn to consistency. Employers trust it. Partners value it. Audiences rely on it. When you are consistent, others begin to know what to expect from you. That creates trust, and trust creates opportunity. When you're dependable, doors open. When you're reliable, people remember you. When you're disciplined, life recognizes you. In contrast, inconsistency creates confusion. It tells the world you're not ready, not focused, not serious. One moment you're moving forward, and the next, you're distracted. That disorients the flow of opportunity. It sends mixed signals to the people and resources that could help you. You appear as a maybe, not a certainty. An opportunity does not chase maybe. It aligns itself with commitment, with consistency. Think of any long-term success story, a business, a brand, a career, a legacy. At its core is consistency. There was someone behind the scenes showing up long before anyone applauded. There was effort in the dark before recognition in the light. And because they stayed consistent, they were in the right place, with the right energy, at the right time, when the opportunity came knocking. But they didn't start when the opportunity came. They were already in motion. Consistency doesn't just align you with opportunity, it transforms you into the kind of person who can handle it. Some doors remain closed, not because you aren't good enough, but because you haven't yet become the version of yourself who can sustain what's on the other side. Showing up consistently shapes your character, builds your endurance, and clarifies your direction. It prepares you to not only seize opportunities, but to keep them. You must understand that life rewards those who align their behavior with their goals, not occasionally, but continuously. That alignment is what makes success predictable. It's what turns effort into outcomes and dreams into realities. The more consistent you are, the more visible you become to the right people, the right circumstances, and the right timing. So, if you want more opportunities in your life, don't chase them, prepare for them. Become consistent. Build your habits. Strengthen your identity. Show up again and again, especially when nothing seems to be happening. Because when life sees your persistence, it sends you exactly what you've been working for, not by accident, but by alignment.